If ever there was a cause, if ever there can be a cause, worthy to be upheld, by all of toil or sacrifice that the human hand or heart can endure, it is the cause of education. Horace Mann. Education has always been regarded as a worthy cause in America, beginning from the first English colonizers. Many actions were taken by Americans during the colonial era to establish different types of educational opportunities with a major focus on teaching for religious purposes. As time continued, however, the American education system has become much more focused on achieving equality, therefore including different religions, races, backgrounds, and genders. The most pronounced reform to American education was during the antebellum period. The common school movement of the early 19th century, pioneered by Horace Mann, attempted to provide the right to standardized, compulsory education to people from all backgrounds. However, prevailing paradoxical values prevented his reforms from realizing the equal right to education and the public's responsibility to provide it. The spirit of reform was alive during Mann's era, as people were dissatisfied with the traditional values and wanted to expand the borders of the country and develop into an industrialized, liberal nation. During the antebellum era, equality was a common theme in various reform movements, including temperance, abolition, and women's rights, as well as the improvement of prisons, the growth of utopian communities, and the development of health centers and asylums. Mann's common school movement embodied this spirit of reform. Mann was very passionate about education, as it was a key to his own success, coming from humble beginnings. Growing up in Franklin, Massachusetts, Mann experienced the shortcomings of the American education system firsthand. He was largely a self-taught scholar with little opportunity for education in a dilapidated, one-room schoolhouse, with instruction as Mann himself described. "My teachers were very good people, but they were very poor teachers." Mann's limited opportunities as a child motivated him to fight for stronger educational institutions for posterity. Mann strove to be at the forefront of the reform, and used his political influence to gain attention for the education movement. Mann is known as the father of American education for his contributions to the major education reform during the antebellum period. Mann envisioned a public education system that would have a profound positive impact on the nation by creating a basis for a moral society, promoting equality of opportunity, and encouraging a more productive populace. Mann's vision developed as he became a member of the Massachusetts House of Representatives, where he focused primarily on education. Mann's vision echoed the ideas of philosopher John Locke, who believed that education was the foundation for a successful society. Locke argued that schooling built man, specifically, that of all men we meet with, 9 parts of 10 are what they are, good or evil, useful or not, by their education. After Mann had served his role in the House of Representatives, he began to dedicate himself to education reform from his position in the Senate. He developed works such as the Common School Journal, which analyzed that, when coupled with religion, education would instill the values of morality by emphasizing the importance of knowledge and piety. Education, Mann believed, was the orderly and symmetrical development on which the continuation of human existence is founded. As the nation pushed towards industrialization, the disparity in quality of living between rich and poor increased, thus creating resentment towards upper-class Americans. The divergence of classes inspired Mann to find a way to bridge the gap. Mann argued against theories that stated that people of lower socioeconomic status were less worthy of education. Equal education, he believed, made it so all individuals had the opportunity to ascend the social ladder and make a greater impact on society. While the intent of Mann's reform was clear, the execution proved to be much more difficult. To execute his vision, Horace Mann advocated for the creation of tax-funded, compulsory public schools that had skilled teachers and a standard curriculum to ensure the right to equal education. In 1839, in Lexington, Massachusetts, Mann established pedagogic schools, or normal schools, where prospective teachers were given courses in content knowledge before becoming official teachers. Mann affirmed that a teacher who is attempting to teach without inspiring the pupil with a desire to learn is hammering on cold iron. Mann also believed that for there to be true equality in education, curriculums and testing must be standardized in order to assess the proficiency of the students in instruction. This testing would ensure that all schools were meeting certain benchmarks and determine which schools would be allocated certain government resources. He also advocated that public schools must be funded by state taxes to effectively eliminate socioeconomic boundaries. On his trip to Europe in 1843, Mann saw a first-hand example of different aspects of his vision coming to life in Prussia. The Prussian industrial model of education focused on tax-funded standardized education with highly trained teachers in order to prepare obedient soldiers and factory workers. Mann returned to the United States equipped with new ideas about the process of standardization. In all, Mann hoped that the equal right to education would break down barriers of class. However, he was met with many obstacles and opposition. As Mann proposed his idea for public tax-funded compulsory education in the mid-1800s, he was met with opposition that highlighted the paradoxical American values of individualism and equality. From the time that Puritan settlers came to the New World to escape persecution from a central governing power, Americans desired a government that would not restrict their personal autonomy. This value inhibited the development of universal and equal education. Mann ran into difficulties popularizing the idea of funding the schools through state taxes. Some argued that it was unfair to tax everyone for public schools, especially those who did not have children. The wealthy were also against the taxes and stood behind the private schools that had already been established. Many believed that the poor were destined to work menial jobs that did not require thorough education. James Simmons, a legislator in South Carolina during 1852, epitomized this sentiment by saying, "Whenever a child is to be educated, it should be ascertained what is to be his probable destiny." The argument made was that forcing everyone to pay taxes for public education infringed upon an individual's right to provide their child with the education they felt was appropriate. The socio-economic gap that Mann attempted to remove was seen as a comfort for the wealthy families and not as something that needed to be changed. This resistance became a major problem because without equal funding throughout the nation, it is impossible to provide equal education. Commonly held political values of the late antebellum period also stood in contrast to Mann's beliefs about the responsibility of the public to provide for common schools. Mann believed that it was the public's responsibility to provide for education not only fiscally, but also in terms of setting standards upon which an education system would be based. The nature of American individualism has been rooted in the commonly accepted belief that centralized government power would lead to an inhibition of personal rights and freedoms. Even in the face of difficulties, Horace Mann still believed that education, then, beyond all other devices of human origin, is the great equalizer of the conditions of men, the balance wheel of the social machinery. However, since the underlying values of individualism and equality are still present today, it is nearly impossible to change the education system to make it the great equalizer that Mann first envisioned. Despite this fact, many efforts since Mann's time have been made to improve the equality of education. Reforms such as the No Child Left Behind Act and the Race to the Top initiative demonstrate the continued national interest in providing quality education. The obstacles that Mann faced emphasized that it is difficult to reform the American education system without compromising the American value system. In order to protect the right to equal education while delegating the responsibility to provide this education to the public, the paradox of values must be solved. This new challenge to strike a balance will embody the next education movement pioneered by new Horace Manns. Horace Mann himself would have supported these leaders, as he once said, "Be ashamed to die until you have won some victory for humanity."